good when I'm living on the edge. Watch me now. Roll like
Hi, I'm Larry Stewart with ForConstructionPros.com. Welcome to Knoxville, Tennessee, beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee, and meet Doug Kennedy. He's CEO of Johnson & Gallion, a general contractor here in Knoxville. Doug, you recently made a pretty significant change in the way you manage equipment on project sites. You went from an owned fleet of lifts and skid steers and telehandlers and all that sort of thing to full rental. What was your primary motivation there?
Over the years, we have maintained our own equipment, owned our own equipment, and supplied as much of that as we could to our jobs. We have noticed over the last 5 years, really since the full recovery from the Great Recession, as the business has grown, that just became more and more difficult each year. It became more difficult to keep up-to-date equipment. It became more difficult to maintain that equipment, to monitor where that equipment was. And from a company standpoint, we did not have a corporate position that followed our fleet. So we left that up to field people, and we just noticed that it was getting more difficult to do that. A lot of different things, from allocation of resources for people, allocation of resources from the facilities we have to store and maintain the equipment, and then the allocation of resources for real estate and what we could do with that. All became, in addition to just the capital of keeping that equipment bought up to date and furnished.
How had your equipment demand grown in that period of time?
Our equipment demand is very cyclical. We have times of the year where we have 30 projects going at one time. We kept equipment here on our yard that we could handle up to 10 projects typically. Some maybe a little more, others a little less, but that was kind of the goal. As the needs grew, we found ourselves both in the rental market and we found ourselves in the own and maintain market. The problem with that was some days you would also be in a season where you didn't need but 5 pieces of equipment. So we would have a yard full of equipment sitting back here in excess. And that was one of the things we looked at as to how do we manage that. And we realized we're either going to have to change the way we do that, bring some people in here that are professionals at managing equipment, fleets, and we run about 40 to 50 pickup trucks. Combine that with the equipment that serves our projects, we decided we need to look for an alternative.
You were equipped for a 10 project situation, and you were up around 30, 40 projects at a time.
At a time.
You were renting a lot of equipment, and that put a lot of pressure on your people in the field to manage that. That must have been a hassle here at the home office as well.
We did not have a dedicated person. I firmly believe that for everything you do, someone needs to own that process.
Yeah.
We didn't have an owner of equipment. It fell to a number of different people to try and track and keep up with that. The accounting process we had was great. The systems worked that our employees in the field knew how to track and keep up with how much they used equipment, and it made it back. But just keeping up with where it was. One of the big issues we faced was on our owned equipment. It was very convenient for our people to rent that equipment, get it on a job site, use it for 2 days, and keep it. Whether they needed it or not. Sure. And again, without all the processes in place to manage that fleet, we could have equipment sitting on a job, not being used, but find ourselves with those 10, 15 jobs going that we were renting equipment while we had unused equipment sitting on a job site. We didn't discourage that, because if it was in the cycle where there was excess equipment, it was better than picking it up, bringing it back to the office, then 5 days later delivering it back, and it allowed them to have it there for just general needs, especially skid steers. They're the most versatile pieces of equipment we use, those in lifts. We didn't fight that, but we realized we're just wasting our company-owned equipment. They didn't use the equipment. They didn't fill out the ticket saying we had this much usage, and they didn't get charged for it. One of the things we really enjoy about the rental program is our guys, because we did have to rent equipment, were very attuned to renting equipment, using that equipment and then calling the rental company and saying, we're finished, come pick it up, because on that equipment they were getting their jobs charged with the cost of having it there,
right,
used or not.
But in that situation where those project superintendents were driving the rentals in the field, you were basically shotgunning money out into the rental market.
Every new rental company that came to Knoxville, which we've had a deluge of new companies move here as the community has grown so much over the last 5 years. What would happen is they would send salesmen to our job sites, meet with our superintendents and say, hey, whatever price you're getting right now from our competitor, we will beat that price. And what would happen is we would rent equipment. So we would have sometimes as many as 8, 9, 10 companies renting us equipment.
Just the administrative side of that become an issue.
Well, anytime your accounting department gets involved and starts complaining about how many invoices you're getting from so many companies and how many checks they're writing, it gets your attention.
Can't be contained. I got